Alright, I recently made the switch from the DJI RS2 here to the RS3 PRO. And anytime you jump between systems like this, there's going to be some shocking little things that you discover as you jump in between the systems. Alright, now shock number one, which really actually very surprised me, was just how absolutely seamless this gimbal blends with the RS2. And this is not a bad shock, this is a great shock because what's awesome, if you're coming from an RS2, you can instantly pick up an RS3 and just get up and get rolling with it right away. The other thing about this that makes it such a very pleasant shock is not only is it easy to work with, but almost every single peripheral and add-on that I've gotten for my RS2, guess what? It still works with the RS3. That is worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars for me to be able to jump in between these systems so easy. All right, now shock number two is also very pleasant and very much appreciated, and that is the extra inch or so that you have on this horizontal arm on the RS3 versus the RS2. And this is greatly appreciated because that extra inch of arm makes a big difference in balancing bigger cameras or longer lenses. And I know that I'm at the stage in my career that I am putting my cameras, I'm having heavier lenses on them, or I'm actually putting like red Komodos and stuff like that on it. And that little inch and a half of difference actually is the difference between me being able to get the gimbal really working well on the RS2 and really having it seamlessly work on the RS3 PRO. So I would say that's actually my single favorite part of this camera. I know it's only an inch and a half. I know size isn't supposed to make a difference, but it does, believe me. And that really utilizes and opens up this gimbal so much more that I don't feel quite as held back as I did on the RS2. Now, shock number three is another really interesting switch. In the RS3 versus the RS2, you have now a switch on the side here that's a pan follow, pan tilt follow, or an FPV switch. And that's very different than the RS2, which you had to hit your M button to switch between modes. It's not like the RS2 was really that hard. I just found myself strangely, I thought this would not be that big a deal to me, but as I have been shooting, I find this little flip switch very convenient. The other thing that I love about this is, I don't need an FPV mode that much, but it's very easy to customize. I was able to take that FPV switch and convert it into my flashlight mode where I could do the 360 spin, and just having that physical switch there to jump between surprisingly has been very convenient. I really like it, and it's really just helped my workflow as I'm working on the gimbal. All right, now shock number four is another small thing that makes a big difference, and it is awesome. It is the Bluetooth connectivity to your camera from the gimbal itself. And this is a nice, very big change I consider from the RS2. Now in the RS2, I could use the USB cable and plug it in, and then I could control start, stop, and record from my camera, but it was one more cable. It was one more thing to do. What's great now is you can set up your RS3, especially if you have a Canon R5 or something like that, and literally, once you connect the Bluetooth, every time you cut it back on, it'll instantly connect, and now I just hit record, and it's so intuitive, so simple, so fast. I just really like it. It makes a very big difference in how I use it. And I'll be honest, I found myself a lot of times on RS2, even though I technically could control the start stop of my camera from the gimbal, I just didn't want to deal with plugging in the cable and doing it. I just wanted to run, so I would still end up manually hitting it. I find myself using the on button record here all the time now because it's just programmed. It's easy to go and very easy. All right, now shock number five. It's kind of one I'm kind of up in the air about. I do probably think it is a good shock, is the case itself. And one of the great things about the RS2, honestly, was the fact that the case was so small I could slip it in carry-on luggage, very easy to go. And the RS3 keeps that same philosophy. The case is still very small. It is slightly larger than the RS2, but its design in some ways is actually a little more practical because now it's just got one zipper that you open from the center, and it's got a center flap that separates this. This actually is really nice because on the RS2 case, it had two separate zippers that you had to open and go, and things could kind of flop around. And that was okay. I do miss the outside zipper that was on the old case, but that being said, I do think the case is different enough that it merits looking at, and I would consider that it improved over the original RS2 case. Now, shock number 8 was another one of those things that is just a small little feature that I think makes a big difference, especially for a lot of people, and that is this. This is the inclusion of a non-Arca Swiss plate that comes with the RS3. You didn't get that on the RS2 by default, and this is great because if you're like me, you'll know that I just don't like using Arca Swiss plates on my cameras. The problem is if you put a bigger camera on there, it can introduce micro jitters because it's such a small surface area. And honestly, the other thing is, I'll be honest, I use Manfrotto plates for everything I do. I do not use Arca Swiss. I don't want to change it. So by default, I'll always end up coming on my cameras and putting a Manfrotto quick release on my things. And having this plate that comes there, giving you the flexibility without having to buy anything else, is a really, really great inclusion in the kit. I was actually shocked that DJI did this, and it's really, really good. Now, that being said, I actually still prefer the small rig extended plate that you can get. It just gives you a little more flexibility. You have a little more length to go with. But I think anybody that's out there using this, if you want to have some freedom away from the non-Arca Swiss plate, this gives you that in the case without spending a single penny more. It's a really nice touch. Now, shock number 7 on the DJI RS3 PRO is actually what I consider a negative shock, and it's one of what I consider one of the great design flaws of the RS2 has now made its way over here to the RS3 Pro, as good as it is. And that is, I'm gonna put my gimbal to sleep here, and that is this axis right here as far as making micro adjustments on this vertical axis. And I still think that all the other axes on this gimbal slide and move very, very easy. But the vertical axis, for whatever reason, when I try and make micro adjustments on there, I have the hardest time with it. As a matter of fact, one of the main reasons why I like having a quick release on here is because if I want to switch this up and down, I actually have to take the camera up because I have all the weight on here. I can barely move this vertical axis, and it's just such a pain to dial in. I was really hoping that maybe on the RS3 Pro we could have gotten more of the mechanism that we get here on the other axis, but it's not there. It's still a pain to do the vertical axis on the DJI RS3. Really hope something that they can fix in a future version, but if you're dealing with it now, you still got to deal with a bulky, yucky vertical adjustment. And hey, and that's just me. So if any of you out there actually have a way to adjust this easier than what I do, which is a pain, please let me know, because right now I hate adjusting that axis. It's absolutely a nightmare. Okay, now shock number 8 as I move from the RS2 to the RS3 is actually how the focus motor attaches to the gimbal. And I really, really like the basic design of how this works, because what happened now is DJI has taken that Arca Swiss mount and they've actually worked in some holes in there that you can put the focus motor to go onto your camera. I think this is a much better idea, much better design than how you had to put the focus motor on the original RS2. But once again, my only downside of this is that you have to use the Arca Swiss plate to take advantage of this. And I really wish there's a way for me to be able to access that kind of idea without using the Arca Swiss plate, because as you know, I don't like using the Arca Swiss plate. I never use it. I get rid of it right away. But that being said, if you are an Arca Swiss user, if you are someone that's in a situation that needs a focus motor, I think you're gonna like how it attaches to the camera. It's much, much better, way, way cooler design. I think it just works better all around. So really, really nice thing to see. All right, now shock number 9 is a small one, but it actually does make a bigger effect on set than I thought. And that is actually the size of the LCD screen on the back. Yes, I know we've all talked about the LCD screen being bigger on the RS3 Pro versus the RS2, and it is. It's not something that's gonna completely blow you away, but I do find that when I'm on set and I am running around, that just having that little bit of extra size just makes things a little bit easier, lets you go a little bit faster. It is a very nice thing. I wasn't expecting to really care about it, and I actually find that I really do like it. So I think that's a nice little shock. And now for the final shock, shock number 10, the thing that I actually was completely shocked by because I was so certain this would not happen, but that is the fact that Raven Eyes is still not built into the body of the RS3 Pro, and it is still, yes, a separate piece of technology that you have to attach to the body. I thought for certain the RS3 Pro would incorporate Raven Eyes into the actual gimbal itself. And it's not that big of a deal, but I'm a little disappointed by that. And the reason why is that this is a separate device that you have to charge separately from the gimbal itself. And yes, you can technically charge it at the same time, but you start using up your ports at that point. And I have found myself on set getting on there and forgotten to charge my Raven Eyes, and I didn't have it, and I had to find another workaround around it. It just would have been nice if it all charged at the same time. It just would have made it a little more easy, a little more integrated. Oh, and there is one more little bonus shock that I'll just throw in there, and that is if you get the RS3 Pro, I did like the fact that the arm that came with the RS3 Pro was much more practical and much more useful than what came with the RS2. Anyway guys, that's what I have to say about this. It's been really fun playing with the system. I have been impressed with the RS3. It is small changes, but they do add up to make a big difference when you're out there shooting. And in all honesty, just having that little extra 1.5 inches of space on that arm and getting my bigger cameras or lens combinations on there has been worth every penny of this, bar none. That is for me the main reason why I would consider getting this gimbal if you're in a situation where you're looking at that stuff. Anyway guys, I would love to hear what you have to say about this. Please leave me any notes and comments down below. And yeah, go out there, keep on shooting, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon.